Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, Unesco Chief of Section for Freedom of Expression and Safety of Journalists, Gordon has described a perfect storm of problems against press freedom around the world. Amadou Kante has the rest of that.
Last year, the data...
While speaking to journalists in New York on Tuesday, ahead of World Press Freedom Day celebration, Gilhan Godoy highlights some of the challenges journalists continue to face in doing their work. He spoke on the prevalent forms of attacks and harassment the news media sector is confronted with across the world.
All this perfect storm of problems against press freedom, a huge element of economic challenges for the news media sector to survive all over the world. So in a nutshell, we have the usual sorts of attacks against press freedom, I mean physical attacks, killings, and attacks during covering of protests, then a rise on arbitrary detainment, but also together with new formats like online harassment or the misuse of the judicial system, regulatory problems, and then the economic problems.
Godoy also explained the global statistics released last year, showing that 85% of the world population have experienced the downsizing of their freedom of expression in the last 5 years. He said UNESCO Director General has condemned the killing of journalists around the world, which has increased to 50% compared to the previous years.
The data regarding the killings of journalists, according to the condemnations of the UNESCO Director General, have increased 50% compared to the previous years. So it's also an increase in the number of killings. There are particular problems, for instance, regarding the online harassment against women journalists. Our data shows that 73% of the women journalists we have interviewed for this particular research communicated they suffered online harassment in a way or another.
The Chief of Section for Freedom of Expression and Safety of Journalists at UNESCO also observed that a recent UNESCO survey has shown attacks against journalists covering protests in 65 countries in all regions, and at the same time 160 UN member states still keep freedom of expression under criminal code. The main theme of the 2023 World Press Freedom Day is freedom of expression is an enabler of all other human rights, with the goal of discussing the central idea that freedom of expression is at the same time an individual right, but it is also a collective right. Reporting for Africa News, I am Amadou Kante.